chat.
Hello, good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Wiktor Bogdanowicz, and I'm pleased to meet you on this discussion panel. Here with me is Clarice Lin and Jonny Ross, and we are going to talk about social media and some particular topics around social media. Clarice, Jonny, maybe you will tell something about yourself, some few intro.
Clarice.
Okay, cool. Hi, welcome to today's discussion. I'm Clarice Lin, the ROI doctor who helps small businesses and online stores to get on Google and YouTube page 1. And I'm originally from Singapore, if you might have noticed my accent a little bit. But I've been living in London, in UK, for the last 10 years. So that's a short intro from me. Over to you.
Cool. I'm Jonny Ross. I am from the UK, originally born in Liverpool. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the football team. I started out in digital marketing over 20 years ago. I'm a podcaster, do lots of video as well. Probably my speciality is having suffered a Google penalty back in 1999 and had to learn the hard way. Yeah, that's deeply rooted in SEO, and it's great to be here. And thanks for putting this together.
Wonderful. Jonny, I know the team you mentioned. You mean Everton from Liverpool, yep? Isn't it? Okay. Yes. So, we prepared few topics to drift around, and let's start with the main topic since for the last 2 years, which is pandemic. And I wanted to ask you to have this discussion with you, how pandemic changed social media marketing, because we know it changed. But I'd like you to share what lessons you have learned from this pandemic. Clarice, maybe you can start.
Okay, so it's always going to be me who's going to start. So, right.
Sorry about it.
I think one thing for sure, pandemic has greatly impacted social media marketing. I see there are more personal stories and experiences that people share online in general, more about their personal life or things that they are struggling, with when they're working at home the entire day. And not only that, that has also changed the consumption of social media marketing, because the times when those people used to be online has actually shifted. So there is no commute anymore. So what happens is people would maybe use the social media earlier in the day compared to before. They might be looking at it when they reach the office. So the timings of that has slightly shifted for various social media marketing platforms. So that's kind of two of the main things that I have noticed. And yeah, Jonny, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, and I was going to say that, for people that are watching, if you've got questions for us, we are eager to take them and hear what you want to get out of this, and use the chat to network as well. I'm just going to put my LinkedIn URL in there if anyone is wanting to reach out afterwards or ask me deeper questions. But yeah, social media marketing, how it's changed in certainly with COVID. I think the biggest thing is there's just so much more noise. What's been a bit more difficult is that to try and stand out and to try and be seen and be heard actually is way more difficult, because everyone suddenly rushed to social media if they weren't there, and everyone, so many organizations have suddenly tried to digitally transform or to try and use the platforms. And so whilst Clarice is so right with regard to timing, the other big issue is so much noise. So I think what that's done is it's put a huge amount of pressure, rightly so, on the quality of the content, because the only way that you're going to be heard in any of this is to have high quality content, and that then brings into making sure that you've got something that's visual, something that's audio, and something that you can see. So that brings in video, brings in audio, and I think that for me is probably the biggest change that I've seen.
I can relate to that. I believe that all of us have noticed that at the beginning of the pandemic, almost everyone responded in the same way, that we have to stay united. Those all of us can remember those statements, those manifestos. I even did, and it was just the beginning. But I believe that at the beginning we were all clueless what to do, how long would it take, and so on. And now I can see that some lacking consequence in action. There is no continuity. That people thought that maybe this pandemic would be much shorter. That they will survive with, for example, content production, which is really hard during the pandemic. And here comes my second question, which is: pandemic made our lives harder in terms of content production. I mean logistics, video recording, photo shoots, and so on. And even though the pandemic lasts, circa 2 years, we had to figure out what to do, how to replace those old processes. So maybe you will share your ideas. How did you overcome the problems of the logistics?
Basically, you need to make your background probably a little bit more interesting. Because in the past, if you are recording outside, you've got colorful trees. I think it was particularly difficult, especially in the UK, because like when we went through like the second lockdown towards the late of last year, the weather was really bad. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, you didn't quite like London, Victor. And that's very true because it was gray the entire time. It wasn't good. So the other thing you need to invest, especially at home, is you need to have like good lighting as well. Otherwise, it's just going to look dull. Your background is going to be dull and it's dark and it's boring and people are getting tired. So a variation of maybe like colors of some kind, maybe some pictures or like your bookshelf. You know, it kind of helps to add a little bit of personality.
Does my wallpaper help?
Oh, that's really cool wallpaper.
I love it.
Really good. Yes.
I normally have a green screen, but with Pine, you can't the way I'm using it, you can't use green. In fact, Victor, I think are you pulling another feed in?
What I'm doing?
Have you got a virtual webcam set up there, Victor, or not?
No, there's DSLR in front of me. Connected to my computer.
So yeah, sorry to interject, Clarice, but you know that's something that that I could take a step up on, and I could have a virtual camera so that when I'm using something like Pine, I could have a nice backdrop. Because what I find, I'm using my daughter's room. And you know, pink wallpaper, etc. But you know, I think your point is so true about, you know, something visually interesting. Anyway, I cut you off. What you were saying, you carry on.
Yep, the equipment in terms of lighting, you want to have good lighting, so you know it's good and that. And then you could get like a simple microphone. I mean, I'm using a Yeti, which is supposed to be quite good, so I don't have to like put it right next to my mouth, so which is quite cool. But like you need to have slightly better headset. I'm not saying you should spend hundreds and thousands of dollars or pounds or euros on it, but but a decent one really works very well because people are getting, you know, tired of those online things all the time, and if they're struggling, what did he say? What did she say? It's not going to make it particularly attractive. So I think that's kind of the thing to be looking at, and I guess you would want to also reflect a little bit of your personality. I mean, even if the sky is gray outside, it's overcast, you haven't been out for 3 days, you would need to kind of inject some energy as well. I think it's really important. Otherwise, you know, people are bored at home, they're tired, fatigued and everything. And then you sound, oh God, it's really bad. And that's not going to help them in their mood. So they wouldn't be interested in your content. So I think it's kind of trying to look into with I would say within like the 4 walls of where you live, you try to look for interesting things to make it slightly different with what you have. because before you would have other options. You can go into some office space. So for those people who have a more limited space, they are probably struggling with it. But if you kind of to vary around, even if you're having a call in your kitchen, maybe that could be something interesting as well. So it helps to spice things up, because if you just have the white walls like that, as in, it's going to be really boring. You're going to talk for an hour like that. So that's a couple of different tips in terms of content production.
Yeah. And I can relate to this one about the equipment. I remember when I realized that pandemic is going to last for a while. I decided to buy myself an equipment, like a professional, not professional, like decent microphone, decent web camera, and so on, to not use it for video production. I've bought it basically to increase my meetings quality, because there are no meetings right now. The only way you meet people is only via this little small annoying window which freezes. And I believe that this is the time where we have to step up with our online meetings game, and at least have a decent equipment to look like a human being, not like a bunch of pixels. But on the other hand, I don't believe that that the equipment is everything you need, because I can tell you from my own experience. Even though I've bought the equipment, I tried to do vlogging. I believe that many of us had those thoughts at the beginning of pandemic. Oh, now I'll have more time. I will start video vlogging. I will start doing some creative stuff, working on personal branding. And, I started doing it, but I lack skills. I cannot edit video. I cannot prepare very well lighting and so on. And I believe that right now it's even more difficult with the lack of skills to do something, because earlier before you just went out to a first one video agency. They did the videos. They supported you. They told you what you have to do. Right now, there's no one, because no one can meet you, and this is tough. So you have to acquire this knowledge, but there are limited resources. I know there are a ton of YouTube guides, but I tried it out. Maybe I'm so talentless that I cannot understand it, but yeah, it doesn't work like that. I believe that, for example, for me, the direction was outsourcing. And to outsource the video production, there are already video agencies like the one I'm partnering with. They create the whole product, like they hire the actors, they write the scripts and so on. They deliver you ready videos, ready to post. And yeah, this is expensive, this costs, but this is a way to overcome those logistics. But on the other hand, I admire people who want to go the other path, the path of learning and self-development and becoming a video professional. But speaking of pandemic, we are right now during the pandemic, but it will end. Someday it will end. We all know that. And what's then? What do you think would happen in social media marketing after this whole horrible time?
Well, I'll go for it. I think that I think a lot of lessons will be learned, and I think that I just want to go back a tiny step there. So you were talking about the use of video and for meetings, and I think that high quality. First of all, I've always heard that to be engaging on video, you've got to be probably 3 times more animated and more with more life than you would if you were face to face. So I think that's the first thing. And I think you do need to bring that to meetings, but also to proposals as well. So if you're doing a proposal and you send a proposal over, now you've got the ability, you had the ability prior, but now it sort of feels more natural and more able to do it, is you could record a quick video to go with that proposal. and to bring it more to life, and to add value, and to explain it, and to and of course you might want to do a pitch, and you might want to do a meeting as well. But I think what it's opened is people are getting a bit more used to camera, and I think that's a big thing. So what's the prediction for the future? Well, I think that we're just going to see a lot more video, we're going to see a lot more audio, but also what that will bring is things like VR and AR, and I wonder where that's going to go. I wonder how immersive social media will get, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think audio and video still has room to grow. Having said that, and I think it's good to see that the platforms are evolving as well. So we were just talking in the green room then around, for example, LinkedIn is certainly evolving in terms of product. It's finally understanding that this isn't just B2B. The whole world is not just B2B, and I think LinkedIn's finally realized that. So that's an interesting move. But yeah, I think there'll be that continual pressure to have better content, more engaging, and more immersive content.
Clarice, can you relate to that? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think that although everyone wants everything to be over, everything pandemic, I think some of the changes are here to stay. Like there are people who enjoy just working from home, or they don't necessarily want to live in the cities anymore. So that's kind of changing this dynamics, and people wanting to have meetings from home, maybe at least once or twice a week. So I would say there would be more reliance on technology as well. I think there's an increasing reliance. And I feel that as the technology is getting more advanced, especially, after this pandemic as well, like video is going to, the quality of your content production also would have to be increased, because everyone is doing more of those things with more online tools, more technology. So you have to constantly evolve and become better at it as well. I think that's the other thing we want to be really aware of, is that what used to work anymore might not work further from there. So we kind of need to take that into consideration, and people's behavior, they would change. Maybe they realize that life's priorities has changed. They have some new reflections. So there could be a number of shifts on that. But I think one thing that's really good is with this advancement in technology as well. So people have the option, they have the choice to decide where they want to do something or how they want to do it. So it's not like in the past where if you are in a company, everybody has to go to the company, everybody has to do that. So there is more things that we can have in place. Like for example, like for us, being right here, having a conference today using a technology like Pine Tool, having everybody there. I mean, it would have been nicer to meet face to face. I mean, I think that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, but would it?
I think there would still be an element of face to face.
So the fact that I can just, at the end of this, turn my computer off or click the close button and not have, to have some of that that conversation that I'm being a bit facetious here, but but I think there is a beauty in being able to just click the close button at the end, and there's a beauty of not having to go on the road. So that's interesting. Sorry to interrupt, Clarice. I wanted to ask you a question, if that's all right, sure, Victor. You were talking about YouTube, and I was curious, how do you see the future if we're just going to be all producing more and more video? How are we going to stand out inside YouTube?
I think this boils down to quality. So you have to really plan out what content you want. You don't just put out anything that comes to your brain. You have to be really strategic. If you have only limited time in the day, you have to think like, okay, I'm going to put out a video every week. What's the topic going to be about? Maybe I need to research to cover the different points in this video. You can come from it from different angles, the way you tell the story. Instead of regurgitating, you could be giving more live examples. For example, having tutorials, you could, instead of just talking about what you can do. You can actually show them screenshots, showing them how to click on this and how do you, instead of telling them, you could have this like little clip share, so you're increasing the quality and time in your production as well. So that could be really useful. So you want to be more useful than the other person. That's one. But also at the same time, your personality, that's really critical as well. I mean, two person could say the same thing, could deliver the same information, but the way they say it, the style could be totally different. I think it also would bring in, like Wiktor was mentioning earlier, about product marketing and personal branding. So video marketing itself is also dependent on personality as well, because some people watch it because they just like the vibe, they just enjoy the energy. It's just like standing next to you, you want to hang out with friends who have good positive vibes, rather than boring people who are just talking about the same thing in the same tone. Yeah,
I agree with that, but I would move a little bit earlier. The thing you mentioned, Jonny. The thing. Now I've lost my mind. So let's move on to the second thing. Second aspect. I want.
Well, you're right. You're right though, because the it is all about personality and people, isn't it? Because people do buy from people unless it's a very big brand. And again, Wiktor, you did a talk on personal branding earlier. Unless it's a very big brand, people buy from people. And actually, you've just helped me connect that, Clarice. That what makes the video stand out is whether someone likes you or not. And so it's about, how are you showing your personality? How are you allowing people to get to know you and to get to interact with you? So I guess it's not just what you're saying and how you're saying it, but it's also about how open you are, perhaps before and after. And I think personality is, you've really hit the nail there for me. It's so much about personality.
I can see here another aspect of this discussion regarding personality. Many of us right now suffer from mental diseases. People are talking finally about it, about depression, about loneliness they feel, about this being left out. The whole world is closed in their homes, and I do believe that in those times, we as human beings, we have this particular need to see other people live their life to the fullest. We want to see it. We want to partially experience it, like to live someone's life. And this is quite fascinating yet dangerous, as I perceive, because if you are able to show the lifestyle or whatever you do in an attractive way, you will attract people and they will be enjoying your content. They will consume it more and more. But on the other hand, this can lead to really serious problems in this perception of the world. Right now, we have this problem of social media that's basically smashes over our perception. They tell social media and influencer world. We have those illusions that people are perfect, that they live in wonderful places, they have no problems, and so on. And on conscious level, we all know it's not true. But on the other hand, many people secretly want that kind of life. They are jealous. And this is difficult, because I believe that there's some point when people can no more care about their own well-being, their own life, experiencing their own life to the fullest. They would rather go and experience someone else's life. And here comes the technologies you mentioned, Jonny, AR, VR. Although regarding the VR, I believe that my opinion is that it will be the same thing as 3D in televisions. I believe that it will go away. And any other, I believe in wearables, for example, glasses, watches, and so on. The market is growing. But on the other hand, there will be some technology that will make people even more engaged, more immersed. And this is dangerous, I believe. Don't you think so?
Dangerous.
Well, social media is seen as dangerous, isn't it? It's the power is huge. But wouldn't it be amazing if, as a human race, we used it in a positive way? All we actually do on Twitter is like to complain. You know, that's what Twitter is for.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, but imagine if the human race was to use it in a positive way. And imagine, you know, with regard to COVID and coronavirus, we've seen so many initiatives across the world working together, doing, you know, putting things in place. And of course, there's been many that haven't worked, and many countries that are really suffering. But in the big picture, there's been very clear messages, worldwide, global messages, whether that be, you know, mask wearing, whether it be space, etc., etc. Imagine if we were to do that for climate change. Imagine if we were to do that for other big topics, and use the power of digital and social media to really make those things happen. And so I think the problem is how we use the platforms, and I don't know how we change that, and when that's going to change.
I think that's to add on to that. I think there's two parts to it. One is every tool or everything in life, there's always the pros and cons. So in terms of social media, you need to balance the amount of time you spend on it and how you use it. And that's something that's dependent on the individual. So there is no, you know, one size fits all. Okay, you need to be there for 2 hours, 3 hours is enough for you. It's more of you need to know yourself a little bit more, and you kind of have to be conscious of that. I mean, an example would be like when I used to live in my old place, I used to put my phone next to me. So I realized the moment that I wake up, I would just pick up my phone and then I'll just be looking at it. Before I know it, 1 hour is gone. I'm still lying on the bed. So I realized it wasn't very healthy because I felt like I could have done other things. So what I've tried to do is, after I moved to a new place, I started to put the charger outside in the living room, putting like alarm as the phone kind of far away. It made me get out of bed. So this is something that sometimes you might not be able to change immediately. You might say, yes, I recognize that. But then you kind of have to think about what can you do to yourself to make yourself move, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the part of it. You need to be educated in terms of what are the options you can have. There is no one person fits all. Maybe you can find out how other people have different solutions. You find the best solution for yourself. And also you need to be aware of like how much time and how you are using it. So that's kind of like where you are from. I know there are some people whose job, if they are social media managers, then they need to be on social media all the time. So unfortunately, that's a bit unfortunate. But I think now people are becoming more acceptable. Or if you tell people, okay, I'm going to be offline for 2 days because of that, they are more forgiving. I think in the past, it's just like, oh, you're a social media manager, you're not online for weekend. I think now if you say that, yeah, and then you say some kind of like health thing, you want to some time off, I think people wouldn't say like, yeah, you are not deserving to be a social media manager. So I think that's a good thing. So the perception is shifted now. So now it becomes more on the individual's responsibilities to set your own personal boundaries, I think.
I got you, Clarice. I am a preacher of this idea stated by Cole Newport, digital minimalism. I try to avoid, I basically switched off all of the notifications. I use really rarely social media. I do not go on Facebook because and and I can still hear people asking me, do I live in the woods? and you know, this is I get their point of view, because we social media marketers, we have to spend our time in social media, but I believe that this is really healthy to let it go after the work, and I can agree. I think that you will agree with me that the best ideas for social media campaigns, for what to do, the creative work, the flow comes when we take off social media, put off for some time, isn't it?
Yeah.
My most creative time is when I'm in the shower. It's true.
It is. I
Yes.
second that. Yeah, definitely.
You're right. Being on the platform just becomes a bit of an echo chamber. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing which, there was one thing that you, Clarice, thought that, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, it made me hopeful because, as I understood, because of this isolation, people can more relate into each other and they are more empathetic. Did I understand it right? Yes?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's one of the things. Like people will work on social media the entire time, watching the toilet papers getting snapped up, getting panicky, and then they realize the more time they spend looking at what's happening around the world, they kind of start to panic even more, and then they are wanting to rush to the supermarkets to get all their stuff. And then they realize it's not healthy, and then they kind of stop and decide that it's time to get off those platforms and do other things. I think that's kind of something that has changed, and I think it's something that is good because only by experiencing in some cases that people can become more empathetic, because then they have gone through it, they feel it, so they would feel like, all right, yeah, now I understood why my friend didn't want to go on Instagram even though I wanted to tag her on Instagram. Something like that. So yeah, and I think I think this could also tie in. The other thing I want to mention is a little bit about like audio content. I think that also comes to one of the topics that we're talking about, this audio content, especially like in UK. I did realize as well, like
your wish is granted.
Oh yes, and talk about Clubhouse as well, which became like a really big thing starting early this year. If I remember, everyone wanted an invite to get into it, and this became so popular that all the other social media giants decide to create replicates of it. So yeah, so maybe I could start on a little bit about Clubhouse. Is that I had an invite, special invite. I logged in, and then immediately someone started talking, and then I thought it was just a platform originally to listen to other people talking, but then I was invited to speak, and then I was going to eat lunch, and then I was like, right, I'm just here to observe. So that's kind of like something that took me by surprise, is that Clubhouse at the beginning, I had this impression that it was quite spontaneous. I know some people love spontaneity, but because we are all working from home, as what I was mentioning earlier about setting boundaries, I felt that Clubhouse, in that thing when everyone was online, they wanting to talk like all the time, it wasn't something that was for me so much. So I did, what was on the platform. I even participated in a discussion, but what I felt was there is a space for Clubhouse, but I'm not sure if this Clubhouse duplicates or clones will work so well on the other platform. So I'm not sure, like Jonny or Wiktor, if you want to add
Jonny,
on.
what was your first experience? Like the first time you saw Clubhouse, what did you think about it?
I mean, I thought, first of all, let's be honest, they've got the marketing right in terms of needing an invite. And there's no question about that. And there certainly drove a huge demand. I think it's very clever. I spent a lot of time at the early stage getting to know the platform and using it and speaking on it. But I've not been on it for quite a few months now, actually. And the simple reason being, I can relate to what Clarice was saying as well, is that it just doesn't fit me. It doesn't fit how I work, how my time, and what I found was that it would eat into Sunday afternoons or 7-8 p.m. at night, and that's when it would get busier on Clubhouse. But it's like, that's my family time, that's my switch off time, and I think that's what I was finding more and more, that actually during the day, during weekday, it was actually a lot quieter. So I think if you're, it depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to speak to and the audience and all of those things. And I think it does have a space where I think it highlights, if anything, and I'm a podcaster I've done. I try and do a weekly podcast. That falls out sometimes. But I love podcasting, and I think the power of podcasting is that you've got. You're producing audio, and you're literally in someone's ear, and they might be listening. As I said with Clubhouse, at any time of day that suits them. So the difference, I guess, for me is where podcasting is not necessarily live, and you can then use it on demand. The beauty is that you can then pick the time of day that you want to listen. But I think the power of audio is huge. So I don't believe it's necessarily more powerful than video. I think they both have their own space at different times of day. But I think the power of being able to get into someone's ear and have that very close relationship is immense. So in summary, I think Clubhouse has a space. It's not for me right now. Possibly because I'm very busy with lots of other projects. But it's certainly a platform where you can learn and where you can, my understanding was there was quite a few celebrities coming onto it, especially in the music industry. And so the power to be able to, just like when Twitter came about and you could all of a sudden reach CEOs and MDs and likewise on LinkedIn, I think Clubhouse has opened a whole nother layer of people that you can reach. So I think that's another interesting part of Clubhouse.
Yes, I can relate to that. I wanted to tell that when I first because I had to wait for a while, I asked a few people to get one. But when I did receive one and I logged in, I was amazed, like, wow, I listened to Malcolm Gladwell right now, live. I was under the impression that I can almost touch him. But then, I listened to any other person that seems interesting to me another time. And after that, I realized that most of those discussions are just people who want to market themselves. They're just talking about some topics just to show their value, their expertise, and so on and so on. And maybe I don't get it. Maybe it's not for me. But to be honest, I don't feel the urge to talk with stranger people who wants to sell something, because you feel it, that people are selling there. And I agree with you, John, that when it comes to audio, even though, as I mentioned before we started, I'm rather reader than listener, I would go with podcasts because I know what I'm going to expect. I know how to tame my expectations, and I know what kind of quality is the product there. You
are right that a couple of people have asked questions around this, but you're right that that a lot of the Clubhouses I was listening to were basically a funnel to try and sell. And that was quite off-putting. And someone's asking, what was the most engaged audience? And I did find that, for example, one of the ones that I found the most not engaging for me, but the most engaging audience on there was the sort of stay-at-home audience that's looking for an additional income, that's looking for sort of a get-rich-quick scheme. And they were flocking to this particular Clubhouse, and I could just see how many were going to end up just going in that funnel, paying some money, and not really getting anything out of it, because such a tiny proportion of people win in that situation. So that was that was one of the most engaging, but it was also like, that's horrific that's happening.
Yes, indeed. And here comes a question from Lena, who asks, what audience engage on Clubhouse from your experience, and what are they looking for there? Clarice, do you want to answer that?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch
What
you.
audience engaged on Clubhouse from your experience, and what are they looking for there?
I'm afraid I've got kind of mixed feelings towards Clubhouse. Is that I get this impression that people on Clubhouse have too much time on their hand, and they have nobody to talk to at home.
Finally, someone said that.
Because the thing is, the first session I was on there, it was a Sunday at noontime. I was going to have my lunch, bite into something and try it out, and then people was like suddenly talking to have a discussion, marketing discussion, and I was like, serious? Like, yeah, I'm not here for networking. I just want to check out this platform.
Oh God, I totally agree with you. It is for people that have way too much time on their hands.
Yes, that's one thing. And then actually the thing is, one thing that I would talk about the difference between Clubhouse and a normal podcasting is that a podcast is like they have an agenda item, whereas most times I realize many Clubhouse sessions where people are spending the time there on, they don't have an agenda. You start a session, let's talk. And where is let's talk going to lead to? Is there going to be some useful information, or it's just like casual chit-chatting? Like, if you have certain time of the day, you're not sure if you're going to spend 1 hour on this Clubhouse session, what are you going to get out of it? I could have spent the 1 hour chatting, catching up with my friend from Singapore, which would be, more meaningful to me rather than talk to a bunch of, as what we say, strangers. We have no agenda. We don't know how we're going to spend this hour. It could be just simply a waste of the time. So that's something that I kind of feel that if they really want to become more useful for people in the future, maybe they could be a little bit more organized in terms of that, in terms of scheduling, which I think that would actually bring more value. If you want to have a live session, we should have the timing there. We're going to have what they're going to talk about, what are they going to cover, what people are really going to learn. Because the description section is also very short, so you can't really see. So they just write a line, and then the details, or if there are any details in the first place, could be about anything.
Yeah, and in fact, it's against their terms to record, I believe. So, if they were to make themselves more of a platform where you could do a live podcast that then turns into something that's recorded. Yes. There are ways of doing it, but it is against the terms, and it's not made easy to do. So, I agree with you there, Clarice. That would make a big difference, I think.
Okay, so Clarice mentioned the time, and the time is really important because we've got a few minutes left. Therefore, let's maybe move on from Clubhouse to another strong competitor on the market, which is TikTok. And here comes my question: is it possible to conduct successful, effective B2B marketing on TikTok? Should we consider that, or maybe not on TikTok, but maybe some alternatives like Reels, Twitter Stories, LinkedIn Stories, YouTube Shorts, etc. What's your opinion?
Yep.
Who are you going for, Victor?
Both of you. But Clarice, please, as we agreed, you are going to start.
Okay. Yeah, I think on account that the timing is short, so I'll try to summarize it, is that I've actually been quite active on, I've tried like a little bit of Reels. I've been active on Twitter Stories, LinkedIn Stories, YouTube Shorts, not so much. So I would say Twitter Stories the uptake seems to be not so much. I don't know, because I've got this impression people on Twitter, they are more of text writing rather than creating videos. So I feel like maybe that's not the thing, or at least I haven't seen the momentum picking up yet so much.
They're too busy complaining.
Possibly. And but Twitter Spaces, I think we could keep a look out for that, although that's a different story. So LinkedIn Stories seems to be okay. I think people on LinkedIn who ran out of posts to look about, maybe they're exploring to see what's happening there. I feel that, for myself, I find there is more interaction or more people looking at LinkedIn Stories compared to Twitter Stories in general. And Reels is okay, I guess, but Reels is a little bit like TikTok. In terms of TikTok itself, I've actually watched a lot of TikTok videos. What I find is that I think there is a space, and then TikTok is getting really serious about monetization and rewarding the creators. So originally last year, I thought they were going to disappear, unfortunately, and it didn't happen to them, and they are becoming stronger. So I definitely see like short videos, people with really short attention span. TikTok videos seems to work really well. I think B2B marketing, if you're targeting younger audience right now, they should seriously think about that. I think eventually it might grow to be like Facebook, where eventually even the older demographics like kids, teenagers, they could show the video to their parents, so the parents could get, could get into it slowly. So as the demographics, you know, the young generation in 10 years time, they are going to be working adults as well. So
we
don't
are
really
going
want
to be unemployed.
so
Please continue.
yeah. YouTube Shorts is still fairly new, but that could change. It's more of like the audience expectations.
Should we share where we are online with 20 seconds to go? Should we just tell people how you can reach us? Victor, where do we find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, which I posted here on the chat. And Clarice, where could we find you?
Yeah, well, you could find me on LinkedIn as well. Like I'm there, and you could also check out my website. I have like blog posts and my YouTube channel as well at Clarice Lin. So there are some useful videos on how to get your blog on Google page 1 and the YouTube page 1 as well.
And I can see that we cheated the physics.